Okay, wow. Guys, America is amazing. Like, what is this?
America, this is genius. This is so amazing. We don't have these in the UK.
Cars do not have their number plates on the front, only the back.
They have food grinders in their sinks, just like the movies, to get rid of any leftover food.
Something very interesting happens when the British set foot in America. They don't spend all day talking about Hollywood. They are also not too obsessed with New York or the Grand Canyon. Instead, they stood in the middle of a parking lot just to look at a driverless taxi. They filmed a shopping cart going up an escalator. They are excited because a pharmacy allows you to buy medicine right from the car. Even a mailbox in front of the house is enough to make them stop and take photos. It may sound funny, but it is precisely those small things that make them feel like they are stepping into a completely different world. Today, we will see why things that Americans take for granted become the biggest culture shock for millions of British tourists.
Watch this. Hello, how are you doing today?
Good.
You good? A little basket. We don't have these in England, so I'm obsessed with the convenience of a drive-thru.
There is something very interesting. Before coming to the US, many British tourists thought that what would leave them in awe would be cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, or skyscrapers. But no. What surprised them at first was a concept that sounds incredibly simple: drive-thru. And their reactions were truly hilarious. As soon as they saw an ATM with a dedicated lane for driving up to withdraw money, many people were almost frozen in place. Wait a minute, you can withdraw money without getting out of the car?
Look at this. What? Yeah, I'll take a large Chick-fil-A meal. Crazy.
Before they could fully recover from their surprise, a few minutes later, they discovered there was even a drive-thru bank. That means you can conduct transactions with bank staff right from your car window. That's not all. When they arrived at the drive-thru pharmacy, many people burst out laughing because they thought it was a scene only in movies. Handing over the prescription, making the payment, receiving the medication, all of it happens while you are still sitting in the driver's seat. If it were you, seeing this scene for the first time, would you immediately start filming a video? Interestingly, almost all the British YouTubers in the reaction videos have the same question. Why don't we have this in England?
At this point, I'm convinced that Americans could literally complete every errand through a drive-thru. I think the difference is that because everything's so accessible here and there's so much room to do everything, in England, everything's a bit smaller and compact. Definitely has its positives, but it definitely can make you a bit lazier.
Some even joke that America is living in the year 3026, while we are still very far behind. It sounds funny, but that's also a very real feeling for someone experiencing it for the first time. Actually, if you look closely and calmly, drive-thru is not a very complicated invention. It's not AI, not a robot, it's not science fiction either. It's just a very simple idea, how to save a few more minutes in people's daily lives. That's the point worth mentioning. In the US, the distance between residential areas, shopping centers, and workplaces is often quite far. Cars are almost the primary mode of transportation for many families. When people get used to traveling by car, they also start thinking in a very different way. Is there a way to get things done without having to get out of the car? And so drive-thru appeared every place. Not just fast food, some places even have drive-thru convenience stores. Some states even have beverage shops, pharmacies, and even many other services designed to serve customers right from their cars.
Showing my husband you can run a full day of errands without having to leave the car.
The aim is what?
How convenient we've made everything in this. 2 shaken espresso.
Trying to do 2 hours where I'm not allowed to leave the car, but I can do everything.
This sounds fine.
All around.
I'm claustrophobic.
And then look, I have to put it into cute.
But one thing about
I'm American. I find this crazy.
Look at
the tube right there.
You can call the teller.
Yeah. There it goes.
It's a soda shop.
You order it with different flavors.
They like boba?
That sugar-free vanilla. Whatever is best for you.
How long we've been?
12:01 and it's 1:33, so an hour and a half.
Oh!
For Americans, it's simply a convenient option. But for British tourists, each time they discover a new drive-thru, it feels like unlocking another secret of America. There's a part I really like. A British female tourist, after picking up her medication through the drive-thru window, laughed and said something like, "If there had been a service like this in England back in the day, then when I was sick or had to take the kids to get medicine, life would have been so much easier." That's when I realized that what impresses people is not just modernity, but it's the feeling that everything is designed to make life a little less burdensome. And perhaps that's why many English people after the trip don't keep talking about a famous building or a popular tourist spot. What they remember are very ordinary, very small experiences, but they make them laugh. In America, it turns out that even getting medicine or withdrawing money doesn't require getting out of the car. If you find these reactions interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. There are still many ordinary things in America that even Americans might not notice, but they leave tourists from all over the world in awe. And if you think the drive-thru system is already unbelievable, then just wait until we step into a supermarket in the US. Believe me, many British tourists even say it resembles a mini shopping mall, no longer just a place to buy groceries.
America, why oh why have you got so many cereal choices? It's unreal.
13 pack of donuts. Why was 5 not enough? Asda do 5. These men have 13.
Wow. Yep. That is the size of ice cream you can buy.
After seeing the drive-thru system, many British tourists thought, all right, the US is probably just a bit more convenient. But then the supermarket doors opened, and their expressions were almost identical. Wide-eyed, continuously filming, and asking the same question, is this really a supermarket?
What is in here?
What's not in here, honestly.
Exactly.
Anything you'd ever need, it's here at Walmart.
They got ramen.
Yes, everything you need seems to be at Walmart. It may sound a bit exaggerated, but just imagine. You walk in to buy a carton of milk and then discover that inside there are dining areas, coffee counters, a bank, a nail salon, an eye examination area, a parcel collection point, and even specialized shops right within the premises. For many British tourists, that feeling is more like entering a shopping mall than a grocery store. The funny thing is that their first reaction was not to rush into shopping. They stood there filming videos. They want to film everything. They want to ask everything. And the deeper they went inside, the more they felt, is America doing everything a bit too much? But then, a very small detail made the entire group of tourists stop in their tracks. That is, the escalator for shopping carts.
In America, you send your trolley down this escalator. Wait, what? If I push this down, this will go in like here. What? That's so cool. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. An escalator for a trolley.
It looks simple, but it's really very clever. No need to carry each heavy bag, no need to worry about the shopping cart rolling away. Everything is designed to make shoppers feel as convenient as possible. And that's also one of the most interesting aspects of America. People don't just think about building a bigger supermarket, they also think of hundreds of small details to make the customer experience easier. But that's not all. In some supermarkets, British tourists even discovered a very special employee. It doesn't wear a uniform, not pushing a shopping cart, nor do they stand at the checkout counter. That's a robot.
Shopping in America is insane. They've got a robot. It's called Marty, and he's just checking for spills on each of the aisles. That's actually insane. But one of the things that I don't get is that the price on the label is not what you pay at the end, and I keep getting it wrong every time. Are you meant to add the tax as you go? Does each state have different tax? I actually have no idea, but I've genuinely never seen anything like that before. That is next level. That is like...
Robots like these quietly run along the aisles, checking for any water or liquid spills on the floor to reduce the risk of slipping. What many people find amusing is that no one gathers around to watch. Americans calmly pushed shopping carts as if it happened every day. And that very moment creates a very interesting contrast. The guests from elsewhere exclaimed in surprise, while the Americans simply continued buying bread, milk, and eggs as if nothing special was happening. Another detail that made many Brits chuckle was the vending machine system in the airport. Instead of just selling drinks or snacks as they are used to, these machines also sell hot sandwiches, burgers, and even cakes from Cheesecake Factory. Many people look at the machine for a few seconds and then turn to their friends with a skeptical expression, "Wait, can I really buy a burger here?" Actually, if we piece all these details together, we will find a very interesting common point. Americans seem to design a supermarket not just for shopping. They design a place where you can take care of almost everything in one visit. Drink coffee, have lunch, buy groceries, pick up packages, handle a few personal tasks, then drive home. Perhaps that's why many British tourists jokingly say after their trip that stepping into an American supermarket is like stepping into Disneyland for adults. Not because everything is too flashy, but because every place they go, there's always something that makes them laugh and wonder. Why haven't I seen such a simple idea before? If you're starting to remember the first time you stepped into a supermarket in the US, please leave a like and subscribe. I really want to know which detail surprised you the most, because trust me, what we just saw is not the peak of the surprises. In the next part, the British will encounter even more unbelievable things. No longer supermarkets or convenience stores, but technologies appearing right on the streets, making many people truly feel like they have just stepped into the future. If in the previous part, the British were only surprised by the convenience of supermarkets, then in this part, their emotions almost completely shift to a different state. Wait a minute. Are we in 2026? Or have we jumped to 3026? That's not an exaggeration. Many British tourists actually exclaimed that when they saw the first car, there was no driver at all.
So this is the driverless car. Start ride? Yeah?
Start right.
This is so fucking weird.
Got me Richie driving better than you.
Oh my god.
For any questions, press the call support button to speak with a rider support agent.
Well, Greg, you don't need them agency drivers now. Look what you got here. You don't need a driver at all.
Do you see anything? It moves by itself, goes straight, turns left, avoids vehicles, stops at red lights, everything as if someone is driving. The European guests couldn't stop exclaiming, "Oh my God." The interesting thing is that a few minutes earlier they were very confident, but when the car door opened, many people started to hesitate. I will really sit in this car? They were also a bit nervous. However, just about 10 minutes later, when the car automatically stopped at red lights, yielded to pedestrians, turned on the turn signal by itself, and took them to the exact destination, their expressions changed completely. That is exactly what I find very interesting. People often fear things they have never experienced, but when witnessing it operate steadily and naturally, the fear quickly turns into fascination. Before they could fully recover from the surprise of the self-driving taxi, the British encountered another character. A small robot is delivering food. It quietly runs on the sidewalk, stops when someone crosses the street, waits for the traffic signal, and then continues moving. There was a group of tourists who even stood and talked to it, calling it as if it were a pet. That scene was both funny and adorable. Meanwhile, the locals just walk by as if this happens every day. And I think that very contrast is the most noteworthy point. Tourists pull out their phones and keep filming. As for the Americans, hardly anyone stops. No one gathered around to watch. No one pointed. No one was amazed. Because for them, it's just a taxi, a delivery robot, a technology that has become part of everyday life. That's also when I realized something very interesting. When a technology no longer surprises the locals, it means it has become a part of everyday life. The same thing happens with self-parking cars. Some British tourists could hardly believe their eyes when they saw the car autonomously observing the intersection, turning on the indicator, finding a parking space, and smoothly backing into the spot. Some people could only laugh and say, if this happened in my hometown, the whole neighborhood would come out to watch. However, in America, the people around continue with their work. And then there's a tiny detail that makes many people burst out laughing. In a family's garage, there is just a tennis ball hanging from the ceiling. At first, everyone was puzzled. What's it for? It turns out that when driving in, just a light touch of the ball against the windshield is enough to know the car is parked in the right spot. No need for expensive sensors, no need for a modern screen. Just a very simple idea, but extremely effective. That is also a common point of many things we are seeing today. Not everything is high technology. Sometimes it's just small ideas, but when widely applied, they become habits of an entire society. If you also find it interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe, because the deeper we go, the more we discover things that seem very normal in the US, but make international friends burst out laughing in amazement. And believe me, in the next part, what will leave the British speechless will no longer be robots or self-driving cars. It's just a mailbox, a yellow school bus, a flag in front of the house, and a few tiny details that even Americans rarely notice. But it is precisely those simple things that make them feel America is different from any technology. After all the driverless taxis, delivery robots, and gigantic supermarkets, many British tourists began to think, all right, there probably isn't anything that can surprise us anymore. But then the most interesting thing appeared. And this time, it wasn't technology. It's just a mailbox. It may seem trivial, but that's what I like the most when watching these types of reaction videos. Sometimes, what causes culture shock isn't million-dollar inventions, but just an everyday object so familiar that the locals never even notice it anymore. Walking a few more blocks, their camera turned to something else, the red fire hoses. Some even stopped to take photos and laughed. Finally, we get to see them in real life. For Americans, those fire hydrants are simply a part of urban infrastructure. But for many British people, that is an image they have seen hundreds of times in Hollywood movies. The first time seeing it in real life, it felt like a scene from a movie stepping into reality. Then, there was the yellow school bus. I noticed something very charming. Every time the yellow bus passes by, the reactions of many tourists are almost identical. They immediately took out their phones to record. Some even laughed and said, "It's just like the car in the movies." Meanwhile, the American children still get on the bus as usual. Parents still wave goodbye to their children. No one finds that special. And then there was one detail that made me laugh the most. The supermarket paper bag. Sounds unbelievable, right? But there are indeed some British tourists who were very excited just because it was their first time carrying a brown paper bag after shopping. They laughed and said, "I've seen this scene in American movies since I was a child." For Americans, it's just a shopping bag. But for someone who grew up watching Hollywood movies, it is a very American symbol. Walking through the neighborhoods, they also noticed another detail, the American flag. From in front of houses, in front of stores, to many neighborhoods, the flag appears with a frequency that surprises many tourists. Not because it is too prominent, but because it is very naturally present in daily life. Some people jokingly say, "After walking a few minutes, you see another flag." Then they turn to admire the swings on the front porch, the wide verandas, and the chairs where people could sit and drink coffee in the morning. A very simple scene, but it made them feel as if they were stepping into an American family movie. Ah, there's one more character that cannot be overlooked. Those are the gigantic pickup trucks. Some tourists recounted that they rented a small car, but when the staff handed them the keys, they were faced with a pickup truck so large that they had to brace themselves against the door to climb in. The first reaction was not to test drive it, but to stand there laughing in disbelief at its size. And I think this is the most interesting insight of the entire video. People often don't notice anything special when they see it every day. Americans walk past the mailbox without noticing, passing by the yellow school bus without even glancing. Driving the pickup truck every morning and then going to work is a routine. But just by changing the perspective to that of a first-time visitor, all those ordinary things suddenly become memorable moments. Perhaps that is also the reason why travel is always fascinating. We not only explore a new land, but also learn to see familiar things through the eyes of a complete stranger. If you've had a similar experience while traveling abroad, please share it in the comments. And if you find it interesting, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, because the ending is what makes many British tourists remember America the longest. It's not about technology, nor about supermarkets or self-driving taxis. What makes them want to return is something very simple. It is the American people and the way they treat complete strangers. After passing by the driverless taxis, the gigantic supermarkets, and all the various conveniences that made the British continuously exclaim, "Wow," I thought that would be what they remembered most about America. But surprisingly, when watching dozens of reaction videos, I realized that the most mentioned thing was not Waymo, not Walmart, it's not the modern technologies either, but rather people. There is a scene that repeats in many videos. A tourist walks into the store. The employee saw and smiled. "How are you doing today?" It sounds very normal to Americans, but many British people turned to the camera with quite surprised expressions. Some even smiled and said, "They really asked if I was well, not just making small talk." Then it was time to stand in line to buy coffee. A complete stranger looked at the shirt they were wearing and said, "I like your shirt." The first reaction of many tourists is not to say thank you, but rather turning around to see who that person is talking to. When they realized the compliment was directed at them, they smiled and felt a bit embarrassed. It may seem small, but it is precisely these moments that appear very frequently in reaction videos. Some people recount that in just one morning, they were approached by 3 strangers. One person asked for directions. One person complimented the shoes. Another person simply smiled and wished them a good day. That made them feel like they were no longer strangers to the tourists. Another situation is also very interesting. In the elevator. In England, many people are used to stepping in, pressing the button, and then standing still for a few dozen seconds. The atmosphere is usually quite quiet, but in the US, many tourists say that as soon as they step in, they hear, "Where are you from? Today the weather is nice, isn't it? Wishing you a happy day." At first, many people were a bit surprised, but after a few days, they started to get used to it. Some people even joked, "When we first arrived, it felt strange. When I returned to my home country, I found myself missing those short conversations." I particularly liked a comment from a British YouTuber. He said something like, "What I remember most after the trip is not a building or a road, but it's the feeling that every day there is someone who makes me smile." After hearing that, I completely agree. Because after all, technology can make us marvel. But the feeling of being treated kindly by others is something that lingers much longer. Perhaps that is also the reason why many British tourists, after returning, always mention the openness of Americans. Not everyone is the same, and each person's experience will differ, but many stories in the reaction videos share a common point. Short conversations, unexpected compliments, or a friendly smile have made the trip more memorable. And I think this is also a very beautiful insight. People often think that what makes up the image of America are the big cities, new technologies, or famous landmarks. But when asking a tourist what they remember the most, the answer is often very simple. Those are all things that don't have a price tag, cannot be bought, also can't be brought back in a suitcase. But they are the things that make people want to come back. And now, after going through all those seemingly ordinary things, let's look back at an interesting question. Why do Americans often not realize that their daily lives are so special in the eyes of the whole world? That will also be the conclusion for today's exploration journey. It's interesting to think back that what many British tourists remember most about America are not the famous landmarks or the expensive technologies. Those are very ordinary things. A yellow school bus, a drive-thru pharmacy, a gigantic supermarket, a compliment from a stranger, or simply the feeling that everything is designed to make life more convenient. Perhaps sometimes we only realize how special a place is when we see it through the eyes of someone who is visiting for the first time. And what about you? If you are living in the US, which part of this video has become so familiar that you no longer notice it? And if you've ever been to the US, what moment made you stop and think, wait a minute, is this really normal here? Please share your experience in the comments section. I will read all of them and look forward to hearing interesting perspectives from everyone. If you enjoy reaction videos combined with analysis of culture, society, and life in America from the perspective of international friends, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you for joining us. See you in the next video. This video is made for entertainment purposes, sharing perspectives, and analyzing cultural differences through the reactions and experiences of international tourists. The content does not aim to assert that all experiences are the same. nor is it intended to compare the superiority or inferiority between countries or cultures. Real experiences can vary depending on the individual, location, and time. We always respect all cultures and aim to create positive, civilized, and open discussions.